Hey, it's Ben here from the Strength Factory, and today I'm talking about endurance and how you can improve your mountain bike fitness to ride all day. I've got 8 training tips for you that are going to improve your endurance. So whether you're training to do a 100k ride over 5 mountains or a 30 or 40k enduro loop, or whether you just struggle to ride longer than 2 hours, these tips are going to help you take that mountain bike endurance to the next level. Tip number 1, you just got to ride further. Now, I know it sounds silly, doesn't sound that helpful, but that's the reality. If you only ever do 2-hour rides, then after a period of adaptation, your endurance just isn't going to improve. And so what you need to do is just start doing longer rides and making yourself uncomfortable doing that extra bit of distance, that extra bit of duration, or that extra bit of climbing. Whether that means turning up early and doing an extra lap before you meet your mates, or whether it means just tagging on an extra climb and an extra few K at the end of the ride, doing an extra lap, it doesn't matter. But you're not going to improve your endurance without simply riding further. So get that in your head, start doing some longer rides, start making yourself uncomfortable and riding further than you want to. Tip number 2 is to break down your distance goal into achievable chunks and make a bit of a plan. So let's say there's an event or just something that you want to achieve in the summer. Let's just say it's 80k, whatever, doesn't matter. And at the moment, the most you can ride kind of comfortably is 40k, and maybe 50k is a bit of a stretch. So what we've got here is a deficit of about 30k, and we've got a few months to make that up to improve that endurance. All we can do, you're going to get your calendar, bit of paper and a pen, map it out, okay? So every couple of weeks, we're going to add 5k onto your long weekend ride or something like that. We're going to break down that goal, tying in tip number 1, where you just need to ride further. So break it down in chunks, a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further, keep consistent, and you're going to be able to ride further. Tip number 3 to ride your mountain bike all day is to drop some body weight. And now this isn't going to apply to everyone watching this video, but if you're carrying a bit of extra timber, if you're carrying a bit of extra body fat, then that is going to have a massive effect on your ability to ride all day, especially if you want to start getting faster as well. The thing that really determines your ability to climb at a decent pace or even just efficiently is something called watts per kilo, i.e. how many watts you're putting into the pedals per kilo of body weight. We can improve that by either getting more watts, which we'll talk about in a minute, or having fewer kilos by dropping some body weight. So if you are a bit overweight and you are struggling with endurance and riding all day, then doing your best to drop some body fat is going to make a massive positive difference, both on your bike and probably for your general health and well-being as well. Tip number 4, no surprise coming from me, is do some strength training. Now, you may not immediately think that strength training is going to improve your endurance, but the science is crystal clear. You will see Tour de France riders doing strength training. Even the lightest, skinniest climbers are doing strength training. Cross-country racers do strength training. Everyone, all endurance athletes, marathon runners do strength training because it improves your endurance, okay? And what are we trying to achieve? Well, primarily, obviously, we want to get stronger legs and hips, but on the mountain bike in particular, we really want to strengthen up the postural muscles of the upper back and shoulders to hold your position for riding all day. So when you're stronger, it's really going to help improve your riding position for descending and riding technical trails. When I can use the strength in my bum, in my hips and legs to support this position, it's going to take a lot of load off the lower back. And I know a lot of you get achy lower backs on long rides. And similarly, if I'm strong in my upper body, then I'm not going to start fatiguing at the end of rides and making silly mistakes and potentially crashing on those all-day epic rides. Because whilst we're thinking mostly about endurance, about pedaling all day, you need to get to the end of the day as well. And if you're going up, then it means you're going to be going down, so you need to have an element of strength there as well. Don't forget as well that actually while we're seated pedaling, okay, in this position here, yes, I'm supported, like the saddle's up, my weight's on the saddle, but there is still an element of weight through my arms and upper body, and again, I need my hips and my back to be working just to keep a great posture so I can be looking where I'm going, so I'm comfortable, so I can breathe freely, and so on. So get strong, get in the gym. Guess what? Check the description below for some links to some online training programs that are going to help you do exactly that. The next tip is kind of obvious, but you've got to pace yourself. If you want to ride all day, then you can't go blasting out as if you're doing a 1 hour turbo ride after work, okay? You've just got to start that a bit slower. Start slow. When you're confident you're gonna make the distance and you're feeling good, then yeah, ramp up the speed if you want to and finish the ride strong. But a lot of people go wrong, especially when you get to an event where you get overexcited, you start too hard, you start too fast, you tag onto a group or something, or you're riding with some quicker friends or quicker riders, go too hard too soon, you hit that wall, and then it's an absolute struggle to get to the end of the ride, okay? So pace yourself on your training rides, pace yourself on the actual ride that you're aiming for. Tip number 6, sorry, not sorry to all my loyal subscribers, because you hear me talk about it all the time, is the key to all-day endurance is aerobic fitness, okay? And I know I talk about it loads, it's because it works, okay? It is what means you can ride all day. So you need to do low-level, easy, aerobic based training rides as part of this process of improving your endurance. And guess what? As well as improving your endurance, it will improve your ability to do intensity as well, whether it's intervals or cross-country racing or enduro. Everything improves, okay, when you develop that aerobic base of fitness. I've talked about this 100 times. I'll link to a video up here, okay, about aerobic based training, including how to do it. But you need to do those easy rides if you want to get better at riding all day. It's as simple as that. If you want to ride all day, you need to fuel yourself to ride all day. You can't drive 1,000 kilometers in your car with half a tank of fuel. And it's the same with your body. So what do we mean then by fueling yourself? Well, part of it is hydration, making sure that you're getting adequate fluids on board throughout the day to replace what you're losing through sweat and through breathing. Part of that could also be using something like an energy drink, so you also get calories from the fluids that you're drinking as well. Talking of calories, as well as getting them from drinks, we've obviously got things like sports nutrition, like gels and bars, as well as like what I call normal food, maybe cereal bars and different things, or a cafe stop, and even just having a sandwich in your bag. The most important thing through the day is just to get enough calories, and that starts with getting a decent breakfast before the ride. In general, the primary fuel for endurance training, like mountain biking, is carbohydrate. And so that is the main thing that we need to be focusing on, is getting regular doses of carbohydrate in throughout the day, including in that first hour when you're not even hungry. And this is where a lot of people go wrong, is at the start of the ride for the first hour or two, oh, I'm not hungry yet, I'm not thirsty yet, because they just had breakfast or whatever, and they don't eat, they don't drink, and then they get a bit behind the curve, you get a bit depleted, and then you're on catch up for the rest of the day. So start eating early, start getting those carbs in and the fluids in from that first hour, even if you're not hungry or thirsty yet. Hello. Oh, hello, so the little one with the attitude.
Very much so, yeah.
To sum up the fueling bit, it doesn't have to be complicated, it doesn't have to be expensive sports nutrition, supplements and products and all fancy, okay? You can literally have a jam sandwich or a PBJ or whatever in your riding pack or something like that, okay? Just make sure you're getting the calories in, especially if you're riding all day at low intensity. It gives you a lot more freedom to eat real food that's got fat and protein in and stuff like that. The harder and faster you go, the less fat and protein you want and the more you want to focus on carbs. But at the end of the day, if riding all day just for fun, out in the mountains or the hills with your friends is the goal, then you can eat pretty much anything, okay, maybe not a steak, and you're going to be just fine as long as you're getting enough calories and you're chipping away throughout the day. For the next tip, we're going to get a little bit more sciencey, a little bit more jargony, and that's because we're going to look at improving your lactate threshold, also known as your functional threshold power. And what this basically means is your ability to put out more power over a period of time, anywhere from maybe 20 minutes up to as long as an hour. And this is going to have a massive effect on your climbing speed by basically pushing up your watts per kilo, which we talked about earlier. Now, if we talk about heart rate and power training zones, the aerobic work I talked about earlier is zone 2, low intensity. Your threshold efforts are going to be in and about zone 4, okay? And when we can improve your speed and your power in zone 4, it's going to improve your ability to, again, ride all day. Because if you can ride that a little bit faster and that bit more sustained just below your threshold without going over it, then it means that you're going to be able to ride further with less effort without building up the burn and the fatigue that comes with going above that threshold. So how are we going to do this? Well, there's 2 ways of doing it. One, super low tech, super simple. One, a bit more sports science training style. Tip number 1 is go out on some rides, some training rides, where you're going to do some hill repeats, hill efforts, where you just focus on riding at about a 7 out of 10 effort. And whether the hill is 3 minutes long, 5 minutes long, 10 minutes, or even half an hour long, that's the goal. Is to get in a good rhythm where you're just riding about 7 out of 10, you're breathing quite hard, you're not able to talk, you're feeling some discomfort, some like warm, low-key burn in your legs, and you're going to do a number of hill efforts, hill repeats, depending on the amount of time you've got. And that is roughly going to be training at the sort of intensity that we're talking about. So basically harder than you would normally ride up those hills. And again, you could do this on-road or off-road. The other approach is to start with some form of testing, and a lot of you will be familiar with this if you use training apps like Zwift or something like that, where at the start of your process using the app, you're going to do something called an FTP test or a ramp test, and it's going to estimate your FTP, your functional threshold power, which is basically the same as your lactate threshold. You start with that, and then you're going to do some specific intervals of specific durations and intensity, again, either dictated by the app or doing something along the lines of, 7 to 10 minutes in zone 4, recover for a couple of minutes, go again, and so on. So it's basically doing the same as I talked about at the start, but more structured, more controlled. We're using heart rate and or power to go about the same process. Over time, and when combined with a good aerobic base of fitness, which is not to be neglected, your threshold will increase, your ability to climb either faster or to do the same speed but easier will improve, and guess what? You're going to ride further and be able to go all day. Oh, it's suddenly getting chilly. The final thing I want to say about endurance and riding all day and potentially really pushing your limits, it's about mindset. You just got to get in that mindset where you're willing to suffer a bit, where you're willing to push that bit further, to go that bit harder, and to do what you were unable to do before. Each time you're going out for one of your distance rides to start pushing those distances up, just go out with that mindset that, yeah, you know what? At times I'm going to be uncomfortable here. This is going to be hard, but it's meant to be hard. This is part of the process. And when you really embrace that, you embrace that suffering, I think that number one, it's a really good thing for the rest of your life, is if you can choose to do hard things and endure, then it makes you more resilient in the rest of your life. And then it's also going to make you more resilient on your bike when things are hard, when you've got to go the extra mile, when you've got to dig deep, when it's cold, when it's wet, all that good stuff that kind of gets me a bit excited. It reminds me of the army. But yeah, mindset, okay? And it takes time. You're not just going to have it overnight. Keep working, keep training, embrace it, do it, ride further. Happy days. There you go, all day mountain bike endurance. If you've got any questions or comments, drop them below. If you haven't already, then hit subscribe, okay? I would love to hear from you. What endurance events have you got planned? What are you aiming for? Are you going to ride 50k, 100k, 200k? What are you doing? Or miles, actually, if you're in America. All right, let me know what you got planned, and I'll be back soon with more mountain bike strength, fitness and training knowledge to help you to enjoy your riding more. Cool. Nice.